right, welcome back. So we're going to talk about the rest of the review for the midterm, the final, which is going to be digestive, urinary, and respiratory. We'll start off with respiratory. When we breathe in through the nose, what three purposes do we have for breathing in through the nose? Warming, moisturizing, and filtration. Good. What is the opening of the nose called? External nares surrounded by the nostrils, which takes us into the nasal cavity, which is divided into the right and left by the what? Septum. The nasal septum. We have three ridges called the superior, middle, and inferior nasal what? Conchae. From there we have our internal nares, which leads us to the pharynx, the larynx, and then the trachea. The pharynx has three parts. We have the nasal pharynx behind the nasal cavity, oral pharynx behind the mouth, the laryngeal pharynx in front of the voice box, and then we have the voice box itself. What is the opening of the voice box called? The glottis, and then the epiglottis is that cartilaginous flap that prevents food and water from going down the windpipe. We call it the trachea, the larynx, the voice box, because it contains the true and false vocal cords. We also have an area that is influenced by testosterone in male that can elongate called what? The Adam's apple, or the laryngeal prominence. From below that we have cricoid cartilage. From there we have the trachea, and the tracheal are C-shaped rings, not circular rings. And it goes all the way down to about the carinae, and it goes to the left and right primary bronchi, which becomes a secondary bronchi, which becomes a tertiary bronchi, and goes all the way down the bronchial tree until it ends at the terminal bronchioles, which go to respiratory bronchioles, which go to your alveolar ducts, your alveolar sacs, and then it ends up at the alveoli where gas exchange takes place. This is where we get our carbon dioxide, get rid of it, and we get our oxygen in. Oxygen is transported by what? The hemoglobin in our red blood cells, and our CO2 is transported to the alveoli pretty much by bicarbonate, or in the form of bicarbonate in the plasma. Okay? They always ask that question on the practical as far as labeling the respiratory bronchioles, the terminal bronchioles, and all that. What is the serous membrane on the lung called? The visceral pleura. What is the serous membrane on the inside of the thoracic cavity called? Parietal pleura. What nerve goes down from C3, 4, and 5 that controls the diaphragm movement? The phrenic nerve. When the diaphragm goes down, we just did what? Inhaled, the diaphragm goes up. We've exhaled, the diaphragm goes down. What happens to the pressure inside the thoracic cavity? It decreases, or negative pressure, and the diaphragm goes up, the pressure increases. They may ask you questions on the model, or they may ask a question in the body. If we pull the little rubber down, what happened to the balloons once we pulled that rubber down? The balloons inflated. They may ask that on the practical. The balloons inflated because of negative pressure, which again is an active process by the diaphragm moving. It's a passive process by the gas being moved. Okay? What else did we talk about with that? That was pretty much it, wasn't it? Yeah. From there we talked about the physiology. What was the device we breathed into to measure vital capacity? A spirometer, or a spirometry device. And as we talk about the sheet, we have four main things to talk about: inspiratory capacity, tidal volume, expiratory capacity, and our residual volume. If we add all four together, what do we get? Total lung capacity. If we add the first three together, what do we get? Vital capacity. And if we add the first two together, we get inspiratory capacity, IC, and if we add the last two together, we get functional residual capacity. Good. They gave you a formula to know. The formula was inspiratory reserve volume equals vital capacity minus the sum of tidal volume and expiratory reserve. So in the practical, there's normally a question like, Tom has a vital capacity of 4,000 milliliters. His tidal volume is only 500. His residual volume is 1,500. What is his expiratory reserve is 1,500. What is his inspiratory reserve? 2,000. 1,500 plus 500 minus 4,000 is 2,000. Okay? That's the only question we're going to ask in the practical, that your inspiratory reserve equals your vital capacity minus the sum of tidal volume and expiratory reserve. Okay? And that was it. And that really was all there was. Can vital capacity be influenced by someone's age? height, gender, athletic ability, disease processes. What is the device we use to listen to the lungs called? Stethoscope. What is the act of listening called? Auscultation. All right. What else did we talk about regarding that? Was that all for respiratory? I think that was it for respiratory. Let's go over digestion. Digestive, we'll start with the oral cavity. We have teeth. We have 20 baby teeth called milk teeth or deciduous teeth. We have 32 adult teeth. What is the adult teeth formula? We have 2 incisors. We have 1 canine. We have 2 premolars, and we have 3 molars, which makes up 1/4 of the adult teeth. Okay, there's 32 teeth. Your wisdom teeth are teeth 1, 16, 17, and 32. Okay. From there, we have the oral cavity. We have the hard palate. We have the soft palate. We have the uvula. We have the oral pharynx, the laryngeal pharynx. What's the next passageway of the digestive tract? The esophagus. The esophagus goes all the way down to the stomach. And what is the sphincter or the valve called that prevents food from going out of the stomach into the esophagus? The cardiac sphincter, cardiac valve, or the gastroesophageal sphincter. Okay. The next area inside the stomach is called the cardiac region. We have the fundus. We have the body of the stomach. We have the greater curvature, the lesser curvature. What is the valve preventing food from going out of the stomach called? The pyloric sphincter. Okay. And from there, we had roughened areas inside the stomach called what? Rugae. And inside there, we had gastric pits, which contained chief cells and parietal cells. Which one did hydrochloric acid? Parietal, and our chief cells did pepsinogen, which becomes pepsin. And pepsin and HCl helps break down the polypeptide bonds for amino acids from proteins, and that's where protein digestion starts. So we need an acidic environment for protein digestion to start inside the stomach. What enzyme from the pancreas picks up and continues protein digestion? Pancreatic protease. Very good. Pancreatic amylase is going to come in and do continuing starch digestion, going from polysaccharides to mono and disaccharides. Where does starch digestion begin?
Mouth.
In the mouth, due to the salivary glands. We have our parotid glands, submandibular, and sublingual glands that produce salivary amylase, which begins the breaking down of starch. What is a test for starch called? IKI, or iodine. What color is iodine?
Brown.
Red. What is the positive test for starch? Black. Very good. What is the test for sugar called? Benedict's, or Benedict's reagent. And what color does Benedict's turn? An orangish color. Brown orange, if you will. Okay? With an orange color for the most part. Let's continue with the first part of the small intestine, which is called what? The duodenum. What is the sphincter? Duodenum or duodenum? The duodenum. What is this sphincter that takes the contents of the pancreatic duct into the duodenum called? Think Garfield. The sphincter of Oddi, the hepatopancreatic sphincter. So it's going to dump contents of bicarbonate. It's going to dump pancreatic amylase, pancreatic protease. It's going to dump bile. It's going to dump lipase. Do we need lipase to break down fats? Yes. What does lipase break down fats into? Fatty acids and monoglycerides. Fatty acid and monoglycerides. What is used to aid in the digestion of fat? Bile or bile salts. It's stored where? Gallbladder. It's produced where? Liver. And it does what to fat? What is the term? Emulsification. It takes large flat goblets and turn it into smaller flat goblets. And we're talking about the salivary amylase. What happens to the salivary amylase's effectiveness once it hits the stomach's acidity? It neutralizes it, and that act of neutralizing an enzyme is called what? It's denatured it. So we can denature or make inert an enzyme by the wrong pH or by a high temperature. Can we freeze an enzyme and just slow it down but not really change it? Yes. So we can reverse the effect of freezing. We can't reverse the effect of boiling. Okay? From there, the duodenum goes to the jejunum, goes to the ileum, and the ileocecal valve is between the large and small intestine in the lower right quadrant. The first part of the large intestine is the cecum. Then we have the ascending colon going up, the transverse colon going across, the descending colon, sigmoid colon, rectum, and anus. Okay? What is the right flexure also called between ascending and transverse? The hepatic flexure. And what is the left flexure also called between the transverse and descending colon? The splenic flexure. Very good. What are those outpouchings of the largest intestine called? The haustra. What is the smooth muscle running along the outside of the large intestine called? Tinea coli. Very good. We also had lymphatic tissue found in the ileum, and what is that called? Something patches. Tires patches. Very, very good. And then we talked about the anus. The anus has two sphincters. External is skeletal muscle. Internal is smooth muscle. Okay? Very good. When we talk about the lining of the alimentary canal, the layers of the alimentary canal, we have the mucosa, the submucosa, the muscularis externa, and the serosa. And the serosa could also be called what? Visceral peritoneum. There's a model over here I'm going to get. This model is always on the practical. So we have here the mucosa, the submucosa, muscularis externa, and the serosa. These things here are called what? The villi. Inside the villi are the microvilli. Inside the villi we have these little green areas called what? Lacteals. And then again we have our intestinal crypts down here. Was there anything else we talked about for the digestive tract? No? Let's go ahead and pause that.